Hello, everyone. My name is Robin Budish, Executive Director of Transit Choices. We have a very exciting meeting for you today with two very informative and relevant presentations from the Maryland Transit Administration. It is my pleasure to introduce our first guest speaker.
I'm just listening to Transit Choices, so it's not like.
I'm sorry, would you please put yourselves on mute? It is my pleasure to introduce Holly Arnold, who is the administrator of the Maryland Transit Administration. We're always honored when she is able to join us and present at our meetings. So with that, Holly, the floor is yours.
All right, great. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate being here, and it's so good to see so many of the transit advocates that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I'm going to be talking a little bit today about MTA's budget, and I'm going to apologize if you were at the Baltimore Regional Transit Commission meeting about a month ago. You may have heard some of this, but there have been some updates since then. And I do think it's an important message to kind of keep putting out there. And so I appreciate everyone's attention to this. I also wanted to give a little bit of a shout out and some kudos to the MTA team. You know, we've been working really hard over the past year to improve reliability, get more riders. And so just got the March ridership numbers, and we hit a post-COVID high for both Metro and MARC. So riders really are coming, which is fantastic. And in terms of reliability, we've really seen a decrease in cut service. You know, our service delivery percentages are increasing. And we've had a couple days this week where we've been at like 2%, which is still not where we need to be. I'd like that under 1%, or really, you know, 99% service delivery, but the progress is there and it's happening. And I think our riders are seeing and appreciating it. So just a huge shout out to the team for all of their continued work to provide quality service to our riders. So that said, I'm going to dive in and talk a little bit about MTA's budget. I got a lot of slides, but I'm going to run through some fairly quickly, and I know this will be shared after the fact, so happy to answer any questions too. So starting out, how does MTA's budget work? There's definitely a lot of confusion sometimes because we have two different budgets, and what does it mean to be capital versus operating? So kind of 101 here, our operating budget is developed on an annual basis. So it's 1 year at a time. So that has to be, it becomes part of the governor's budget and is approved by the General Assembly for the following year. So the General Assembly that just finished earlier this week approved a budget for FY25. So our FY25 budget was set by the General Assembly for next year. We appropriate and spend the funds in that same fiscal year, so beginning July 1st, and then we'll spend them all through June 30th. Generally kind of short-term in nature, so it's mostly just providing the actual service that we do day in and day out. The capital budget, on the other hand, is a much more complicated process. So it's a 6-year budget. Funds can be moved within those 6-year period. And it really is those long-term in nature type things, like buying vehicles, building facilities, all of those kind of major things are part of that capital budget. So looking at our capital budget, so our 6-year capital budget is $4.5 billion, has over 850 projects in it. Our focus right now really is on state of good repair. So over 60% of the budget is focused on making sure that we are keeping all of the assets that we currently own, which is about $13 billion worth of assets, keeping them running and allowing them to operate at their full level of performance. There is funding for expansions, including the Purple Line and the Red Line. The Purple Line at the moment is the bulk of that, but we've got some planning dollars to keep moving forward with the Red Line and advancing that project, which we're very excited about. And then we have some funding for enhancements, including the Frederick Douglass Tunnel. So that really is an Amtrak project, but the MTA portion of that is included in enhancements. And we do provide funding as well for the locally operated transit systems throughout the state for their state of good repair and enhancement projects. So how do we develop the CTP, and what's its relationship with, we also talk about the C&I, the capital needs inventory sometimes. We have a lot of different documents that kind of come out and get a little bit confused. And so the C&I, our capital needs inventory, is required by legislation to be updated every 3 years. And it looks ahead 10 years to identify what are the needs to basically just maintain our system in a state of good repair, and what are our needs to do some enhancement projects to make that system better. So it doesn't include major system expansions, but it would include enhancements like adding on the MARC lines where we don't have high-level platforms on Camden and Brunswick lines. So adding those types of things would be considered enhancements. Adding new shelters versus state of good repair, just maintaining the stuff that we already have. So this document comes out every 3 years. The last one was July of 2022. We'll be updating it again in 2025. And we do kind of take a look at that on an annual basis as well, just to track where we are, what our needs are going forward. So from the 2022 CNI, it does basically kind of predict the condition of our assets in future years, and it gives us a good snapshot based on, different budget and spending conditions. So if we're able to budget more and spend more, what does that do versus if we're able to budget less and spend less? So as of FY22 or the 2022 CNI, the predicted amount of necessary annual state good repair funding per year was $512 million. We don't actually spend that way. It's a little bit more lumpy because of major purchases, but that was the kind of estimate, not including costs for the Purple Line, the Red Line, Frederick Douglass Tunnel, and some of our other major initiatives. So that's the top chart there. You can see what was in the CNI. And you can see with the current budget where we are SGR backlog by mode. So we're not quite hitting those same numbers that we were predicted to in the CNI. There's been a lot of talk about the overall budget transportation trust fund issues. And so the General Assembly did this past session between the budget and the BRFA add some additional funding for transportation, which we're very excited about. Again, everything just kind of happened on Monday, so I don't have specifics yet, but we know that it's a good first start, and we're really thankful for the General Assembly for kind of taking that first initiative. They did a great job as well. I'm maybe a little biased, but they provided a kind of waterfall of how they want the funds to be spent. And so going first to highway user revenues, which ensures that the local jurisdictions have funding to maintain their local roadways, which is really important for MTA in particular here in Baltimore City. Our buses run on those streets and we need them to be able to maintain them in a state of good repair. So we're very happy for the city there. So it's HURs, lots funding, and then MTA operating and MTA capital are state of good repair before getting into some SHA state of good repair. So, really focused on meeting those needs that we have today. And so we're thankful to the General Assembly for that. So we did take a look at the CNI update. So again, we're due to update it in 2025. And so we took a look now of what we think that's going to be. We also started to incorporate the Purple Line, so, right? That is an asset that we are building, that we know it's going to be open. We know we're going to be responsible for the capital maintenance of that. And so looking ahead 10 years, that 512 jumps up quite a bit. So the annualized cost becomes $980 million per year. A lot of that is inflation. We've seen really high inflationary cost environments over the past couple of years, particularly in the transportation industry, 50% in some cases, which are driving a lot of it. New needs that we've been able to identify based on the real costs that we're now seeing for the light rail vehicle replacement and the station needs that we're going to have for the zero emission bus. So those are added on here. And then we need to consider the Purple Line. And so that is now actually in the numbers that we're looking at going ahead too. So it's a big number, but it's something that, I think we need to be honest with what we need and really focus on that. The other piece here, and I'll get into this in a little bit, is we do need additional state employees to kind of help us manage this project, this budget and these projects and be able to deliver at this level. So we've had, kind of two challenges that we're facing. So the current funding and the prior budget, not sufficient to meet our state of good repair needs. You can see some of the gaps on the prior pages. And then we also have some internal capacity constraints that limit our ability to spend those program funds. In particular, we're really struggling in our procurement department. We have a lot of our number of procurements has basically tripled and our staff hasn't. And so we need to increase our capacity there. We need to change some of our processes and really think about how we do things, which is something that we're doing now. So you can see over the past few years, we have not been spending the amount of money that we have. And so that needs to be fixed. And so that is really our big focus right now, is making sure that the dollars that we already do have, that we're spending those. And we have to do that. The chart at the bottom gets into what happens if we don't do that, right? Like if we cannot increase our spending levels, doesn't matter if you give us the money. If we cannot spend more, the backlog is going to continue to grow. So this was really vitally important for the agency. And it's a big focus of mine, of Kate Sylvester, our deputy administrator, really focusing in on this area. So some of the challenges, we do have an undersized administrative workforce. I think you guys have seen the salary and staffing report that we put out a couple years ago. We just have lower staffing levels compared to many of our peer agencies. We've had some recruitment and retention challenges tied to our compensation packages, which lag behind the industry because we are part of the state. We have some internal policies and regulations that limit our ability to kind of move procurements more quickly. And they're having a lot of supply chain challenges. You know, a lot of the increase in the number of procurements that we have to do is because, you know, vendors that we used to be able to count on to give us everything we need now can't. And so we're having to add additional procurements to get the same amount of things that we had previously. So we're working on all of these. We have great support from Secretary Wiedefeld, from the governor. And so, you know, I think everyone is recognizing and working towards tackling these issues, which is a good place to be. So some of the things we've done already, we've added 3 additional positions to our procurement office. We're looking to add more. So the FY25 budget does have 109 pins coming to MTA. We have allocated some of those, but we may reallocate some of those to support our procurement office. We created a new Director of Capital Program and Asset Management position to better allow us to tie the asset management data that we have to our capital budget. And that's been really helpful. We're continuing to, you know, change some of our processes internally, added some additional consultants to drive our projects. And then on the policy side, a couple years ago, we established our Program Management Oversight Office to help us bundle our projects, coordinate them, help us maintain schedules, which really is focused on making sure that we're minimizing impacts to the riders, especially on the rail side. When we do, you know, track replacement, we're going to impact our riders and trying to figure out how to minimize that as much as possible so that we can continue to move forward. We're also, you know, making sure our department directors are included in our budget management and just building a larger pipeline. You know, for a long time, we didn't really have a great planning pipeline. And so now we're building that back up and getting in a better position so that we have more flexibility. So now switching back to operating. So if you remember, the operating is that 1 year at a time. The FY25 budget that was proposed includes $1.2 billion for MTA. It is primarily labor and contracted services. So, you know, there's not a lot of fat in our budget. It really is just providing that service that we do each and every day. And then the other categories, right? Rent and utilities, parts, inventory, and diesel. Again, those are things that we need in order to be able to continue to provide that service that we're providing now. We have got a lot better at improving our budget over time. So while our operating costs have increased, you can see that, you know, the dark blue line is the budget, the light blue line is our actuals. For a really long time, we were spending over our budget every single year. The past couple of years, we've gotten much tighter with our budget controls and management, and are able to show that, like, yes, we are a good steward of dollars and we spend what we have and we spend it responsibly. So the team continues to work on that. We've also seen, you know, some major categories that have really driven our labor costs over time. So, you know, in looking at the past 10 years, labor costs have increased by 40%. Contracted services have increased by 60%, including a 30% jump between FY21 and 23. So that really is kind of pandemic related, what we're seeing from our contracted service with paratransit, in particular, having a 30% jump in FY23. And then on the MARC side, we are reliant on the contractors, and there's the American Association of Railroads that sets the cost increases that are built into our contracts. And so in FY24, they did see a 25% increase, which was kind of unprecedented. But this is the environment that we're in right now, is things are still kind of settling post-COVID. But overall expenditures have increased by about 43%. So looking ahead, what do we need? So basically just to maintain our existing services. This is the no additional service increases with the exception of the Purple Line. And if we were to keep the current levels of commuter bus, we need, you know, over 10 years, $15.2 billion per year. It does grow over time, and you can see when the Purple Line availability payments really kind of start to come into play. But, you know, just that's what it takes to maintain what we have. And so I think it's really important that everyone is kind of on the same page of understanding what that is. That said, looking ahead, we do believe a better transit system is possible. You know, I think that the MTA team has done a great job recently of, again, focusing on cut service, focusing on improving our reliability. But we want more, right? We know that we can hit harder, and we know that we can have a better system for the region, and the region needs a better system. So with additional investment in 10 years, we can have a transit system that really is frequent, reliable, and easy to use, that expands to meet the regions and the state's growth and really helps to drive economic development. A transit experience that's pleasant and dignified, and where buses and trains are so frequent that you really don't need a schedule. So what does that mean? So within the next 3 years, with additional PINs and funding, so not even really a lot of capital expenses, just additional, on the operating side, about 260 million and 400 PINs, we can get to the point where we have a 30-minute minimum service standard on all of our bus routes. And I know 30 minutes still doesn't sound great, but we've got a number of buses right now that have hourly service, 45-minute service. And when one bus gets cut, like that's pretty devastating for riders. So if you end up with a 30-minute minimum service standard, it really does improve life, improves opportunities for a lot of folks. On the metro side, we're getting our new vehicles in. They should all be in service within the next 3 years. So if we can add operators, we can get down to 6-minute metro headways, which again, really, it starts to be kind of transformational for our metro riders. With increased operators on the light rail side, we can increase and finally have Sunday morning light rail service. So match our Saturday hours on our Sunday. I know, when you're coming back from a flight late and service stops at 8 o'clock, it's not great for our riders. It's not great for people who work at the airport to not have those options late night. And so being able to increase service there would be really transformational. We can add transit ambassadors, restroom attendants, and just really overall improve the experience for our riders. Restrooms have been a big topic of conversation in the transit industry recently. I just got back from a trip to Copenhagen, and I've got a 2-year-old who's potty training, and like the ability to find public restrooms really matters. It matters to families, it matters to people with disabilities. And so being able to do something like that, I think would be really, really great for our riders. We can look at our commuter bus system and look at potentially doing all-day service in some areas. It very much is commuter focused, and we've seen more demand for midday service, more demand for weekend service. We'd like to take a look and reimagine what that could be and provide better service to our riders. And then for the lots have been operating with flat levels of operating capital funding for a number of years. And so we like to increase the amount of funding that we're providing to them so that they can increase their services and again, better improve the reach across the state. Looking forward to 10 years. So 10 years is really where you get more into the major capital investments. Within the next 10 years, if we have appropriate investments, we can have the red line open, 7-minute light rail headways with new vehicles that are coming in. And we just received the grant for that, which we're very excited about. Further increases of bus service. So really getting to this point requires us to build a 5th bus division, which we're in the early planning stages on now, but we need the funding for that. We need to add positions for that. But looking at a 3 to 5 minute average wait time on the frequent transit network. Expanding our mobility fleet, the types of vehicles, the amount of vehicles, increasing MARC service on all of our lines. There's a number of projects that are in the early pipelines right now, but those will start to come into fruition in about 10 years. Upgrading our metro light rail and our MARC stations. They are all aged. They need a refresh. Looking at regional transit hubs, enabling better connections with the lots, and then, fully eliminating our state of repair backlog. And then finally, creating that pipeline, right? So it's not just the red line. We need our north-south corridor. We need to be looking in Southern Maryland at the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit, and the other RTP corridors, and building that pipeline so that we have a pipeline of projects that really help us to kind of build out that system. We're going to be coming out later this month with a Be More Bus, a better bus plan that helps us kind of look at and prioritize what bus service might look like in the Baltimore region. But this is, a quick and dirty kind of what a 10-year vision might look like. And so, expanding the frequent transit network to 20 routes with that average wait time of 3 to 5 minutes, expanding our quick link network. We had Quick Bus previously that was very popular. The Quick Link 40 has done really well. And we see a lot of opportunities there to leverage our existing dedicated bus lanes and then upcoming RAISE East-West improvements to really improve service and add that Quick Link network. Looking at increasing local link routes, increasing service there, and then again, making sure we have that minimum service standard for all of the other routes. So what does it take to get there? It takes more money, right? So in addition to the 15.2 billion just to maintain what we have, so total operating funding over 10 years would be 16.5. Capital funding, varies depending on kind of which options you take, but 19 to 25 billion, and more PINs. We need more employees to be able to deliver these things. And so this just gets into the details of each of those, of kind of what that looks like for maintaining our existing service and the system expansion. And then on the capital side, again, you can kind of see the range here based on, lowest cost versus highest cost for the different projects that we have. And so that is it for my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions, and I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, Holly. Let me just see if we have.
Robin,
Yes.
Holly, I'm just so impressed by your ability. In the 12 years that we've been here, Transit Choices, we've never had such a detailed explanation of the funding needs and the budgeting of the MTA. And I'm so impressed by your ability to go into that detail and explain it to people. It's just great. And I'm particularly impressed that you are now thinking of what it would take to get a really great transit system, public transit system, up and running, and what the cost of that is. And this is such a crucial point right now when we have the Train Commission considering revenues, how to increase revenues for transit. We're not just talking about maintaining what we have, but it's got to be part of the conversation, which you just presented, what we need to make the system really top rate. And that's been Transit Choices' goal since the beginning, to create a top rate transit system for the Baltimore area. When I woke up this morning, I was thinking what we need, we have this blueprint for education, which looks at education and provides for what we would need to have a great education system. What we need is a blueprint for transportation, because what sense does it make to educate kids and then they're reliant on public transit and can't get to school on time? Or what makes sense does it make when they graduate, they can't get to their jobs on a regular basis in a timely and efficient manner? So I would love to see you develop just the idea, or talk about the idea of a blueprint for public transportation. But I am so appreciative of what you do. I'm amazed at your grasp of so much detail and what a demanding and broad spectrum your job encompasses, and your ability to handle that, even with two small children, just really impresses me. And I want to thank you for coming and doing this presentation today.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. No, and I appreciate that. And I do really want to shout out the MTA team, right? Like, this is not just me. We've got a fantastic team that is working incredibly hard each and every day to provide service. And to your point, I do think we maybe haven't done as good of a job as selling the need for the agency, the need for that growth, and putting out a vision that people can get behind and support over the past several years. And so, better late than never, we're now recognizing that and trying to sell the vision and sell the benefits of transit. I didn't even get into here too, right? Like the benefits that this will have to the region. I don't need to sell that to this group, but making sure that we are selling that, every $1 invested in transit brings $5 in investment, that transit, 90% of trips on transit help bring economic development to the region. And just the opportunities that it brings for people who don't have access to a car, which is about 30% of Baltimore City residents. So yeah, no, appreciate that.
Anna?
Hi, Holly. Thank you for your presentation today. I was at the Baltimore Regional Transportation Commission meeting, so I did hear some of this before, but you did have some updates. I have a question about light rail cars, because since the shutdown in December, we've been coming back. Are we still on track, hopefully, to get all of the cars working again? Because I still see mostly one-car trains, and And again, just yesterday, there were 2 disabled trains. I mean, so we're still having problems with these light rail cars all the time. So is there any update on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so it's no secret to our light rail riders that this overhaul has not exactly improved service. And our same thing with our light rail maintenance team. I mean, so no, we are still really struggling to have enough vehicles available for service every day. It is not related to the shutdown in December. So all the cars associated with shutdown in December, I think all of those have been fixed except for a couple that are still up in Alstom and a couple accident vehicles that we may end up not repairing because they may not return to service. But there's other issues that we've had with the overhaul, with some of the warranty work that we're still reliant on Alstom to do. And then just kind of generally an aging fleet. You know, the fleet is over 30 years old in most cases. We have some parts availability issues. So the team is doing their best, is continuing to make sure that we have at least a single out there, right? Like a single is better than nothing. Continuing to kind of push for events and making sure we have at least 2 cars for events, but it is going to continue to be something that we're working towards and pushing on over the next few years. But the main goal right now is making sure we maintain that availability while we are replacing the vehicles. So getting that grant is a huge first step, and the team is working as quickly as they can to get those replacement vehicles in place.
Jim?
Good morning, Holly. I'm like Jimmy, I'm very impressed by the range of issues and efforts that you're describing. One of the things that kind of stands out in my perspective on things is the lack of local government participation in what you do, and the lack of local government advocacy for particular improvements in that you're attempting to do, but also connecting with local activities to really bring more riders to transit. How can that be improved, and what advances have you seen, for example, in Baltimore City and County and Anne Arundel County in that area, in that arena?
Yeah, we've seen I think so. One thing that the Baltimore Regional Transit Commission was set up to do was to kind of provide some of that more support. I don't want to say oversight because that's not the right word, but the advocacy for additional transit in Baltimore, helping to kind of push for more in the region. Our teams have worked really hard over the past 5-10 years to develop better relationships with the city, the county, and Arundel County. We do now meet monthly with Baltimore City DOT, which is improvement of where it's been. The leadership there has done a great job. They're understaffed as well. They need more people, but has done a really great job of partnering with us, and we do understand the importance of working together. And Baltimore City in particular, we say, hey, we want a dedicated bus lane here. Generally the answer is yes, right? Like we're getting a lot of yeses from them when we're pushing for additional transit priority throughout the city. The Complete Streets bill was a huge part of that. In Baltimore County, similarly, I mean, so they now have the Towson Loop. They worked really closely with us to ensure that it was that the stops were in the same place, that we had that kind of good co-location and can make sure that we're providing for transfers. Same thing in Anne Arundel County. Again, they're looking at a hub down in Parole that would allow for our buses to go in there, for their buses, commuter bus. So I don't think it's there yet. I think there's still room to grow, but I do think there's a recognition from the leadership. And that's why the Baltimore Regional Transit Commission is here, is to look at how we can all work better together.
Thank you.
Is it Arjan?
Yes, Arjan, yes. Yes, good morning. Thank you for this presentation. I think it was super helpful. I had one question about the employee ratio that you presented, and showing like our ratio in Baltimore is so much lower than at other agencies. Does that ratio include like the operators also? And do you include all employees? Because I was thinking like, how does that reflect in how many more drivers do we need for future operation of service and increasing the frequency? Because I would expect that we need a lot more, that we need a good support and efforts to make sure that we get a lot of drivers on board. If I would expect that include drivers, so I didn't know what that ratio exactly meant. So maybe you can explain that a little more.
Yeah, so the ratio, that's all MTA employees, agency employees, compared to our revenue vehicles, which is how one way to kind of standardize. We do contract a lot of service, so it doesn't include the contracted service that we provide, commuter bus and mobility. But yeah, generally that is the ratio. In terms of bus operators in particular, one of the things that we are taking a look at is the amount of extra board that we have. So not to get too in the weeds, but for operators, transit agencies typically have what's considered the extra board. So there's folks who, you know, someone calls out, they're on vacation, they're able to kind of come in and pick up those other runs. Agencies these days, there's a lot of discussion about like what the right number and what the right percentage is. Somewhere between 20-25% seems to kind of be where the industry is circling around. We're still lower than that. We're still about 18%. And so that is one area where we're continuing to focus to see, can we increase that extra board percent? Because that is really what makes sure that we have the good reliability that we need.
Okay, thank you.
Holly, I think I'll close out seeing no more raised hands, or close out this Q&A session by first congratulating the MTA for, you know, winning the 1.2 federal SMART grant to advance transit signal priority. This is huge. Holly, as you know, we've been talking about this, you know, with you and your team for over a decade. So congratulations. You know, the commitment to achieving this important goal and the incredible improvement that it will make, right, once the technology is implemented, is very much appreciated and very much needed. I also wanted to, we get a lot of questions with respect to if there are any news or updates regarding the Red Line project. Specifically, people are asking, you know, basically, when will there be an announcement with regard to modality, alignment, and other related, you know, details?
The team has been moving full steam ahead, continuing to push the project. Working very closely with FTA on the environmental kind of refresh that we need to do. We are still on track for a mode announcement later this spring and alignment towards the end of the year.
Okay. In spring. That's wonderful. Great to hear.
Yes, no, the team
So
is doing
again,
a great job.
You know, I echo, you know, Jimmy's comments and thoughts. We are very, very lucky to have you at the helm, and we certainly acknowledge and appreciate, you know, the amazing team that you've assembled, you know, working very, very hard to improve and expand our public transit system. So thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce our next guest speaker. Roxana Beyranvand is the Director of Rider Experience in the Office of Customer Service with the Maryland Transit Administration. So Roxana, we welcome you.
Thanks so much, Robin. Really appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here. Start off my morning with you all. Want to first thank Robin, Jimmy, and Transit Choices for having me out, and going to share my screen. Really excited to share about our inaugural rider experience team at the MTA. All right, so for today, I really want to take this time to, you know, just say this is kind of like a really nice like meet and greet for you all. Excited to share about our team, who we are, you know, what our goal is, how we're going to work and do in our approach, the methods and methodologies that we're going to use, just so you can get to know a little bit about our team. Again, we're the inaugural rider experience team. So we're about a little over 2 months in and getting started and laying the groundwork for our team. A little bit about our team. We're a very diverse team with a range of expertise areas. We have a program manager that's leading the build out of our program and an outreach specialist who's boots on the ground. We're currently also continuing to build out our team and looking for a project manager that's going to help do a lot of the internal work, and another outreach specialist to help expand our capacity. So I'm really excited, like I said, building the team together and creating our, you know, path forward. I also want to mention just a little bit about myself, just to share. I started my career on the previous iteration of the Baltimore Red Line project. It was the start of my transportation career, really got me passionate about that. I went from a planned project to working on providing a local shuttle service in the Baltimore area. Have done some highway work and projects, and most recently I'm coming from the Office of Performance Innovation at the City of Baltimore. So I'm really excited to come back into the transit world and work with a great team at the MTA. So a little bit about where we sit among our office. Again, we're within the Office of Customer Experience. We have 3 key teams. So we're that, imagine like the third leg of the 3-legged stool there. We have our performance management team that's really focused on statting and looking at the performance of our different modes. We have our service information team that's managing real-time information throughout the service. And then our new team that is really focused on elevating the voices of our riders, understanding their needs so we can help improve their experience. Now that I mentioned a little bit about where we sit in the MTA, I also want to call out the customer experience dashboard that was recently launched earlier this year. Our performance management team has been at the helm of this. This is a dashboard that helps provide information about the key performance metrics that we use to look at the different 6 modes across our system and some key areas. So some of these include our on-time performance, the reliability of our real-time prediction, the availability of that real-time prediction, our ridership numbers, along with other things including our vacancy rate, so looking at the number of those unfilled vacancy positions that we have. I highly encourage you all to take a look at this. You can find this on our website. If you look under the About section and you're able to add in the time of like the period that you want to look at the information from, like the dates, and be able to select the mode in particular and look at these different metrics. These metrics help our team kind of steer us in the direction of looking at where we want to go out in the field and be able to kind of start to target the different riders and the modes that they're riding as well. So I've talked a little bit about the office. I want to take a step back and share the core values of the MTA in terms of the focus on the customer. This is the place where our team started, looking at these and understanding that the MTA is committed to an equitable transit future. These kind of were the starting places for our team and understanding how we're going to help improve the customer experience. So really thinking about those key areas of safety, being equitable, continuously improving, and being respectful. So now I've talked about the core values of the MTA. I want to switch back and dive into our team. So our goal is really to focus on improving our rider experience by using a human-centered design approach and to co-create our solutions with our riders. Another way to think about human-centered design, if you're not familiar with it, is just simply being people-focused. I also want to elevate, when I say co-creating solutions with, that means bringing our riders into the fold and into our process and not just creating for them. And I'll talk a little bit more about human-centered design as well. So now with our clarity on our goal as our team, I also want to discuss and share our approach. We're taking inspiration by the Bloomberg Cities innovation model, and this is how we're going to approach the work that we do. What you see here is 3 key phases of work. First, it's the understanding the problem. During this part, we're looking to conduct deep research. This includes going out into the field, meeting riders where they're at, going to the bus stops, the stations, being on the vehicles themselves. As we collect data, we begin to make sense of that data and potentially reframe the problem if necessary. Once we've done a lot of the understanding, we start to transition into the next phase, which is generating and testing new ideas. So at this point, we're starting to create ideas with our riders, with our partners and community, prototype and also test and refine some things, and then develop a portfolio of initiatives. And lastly, we move into delivery. And during this phase, we pilot and test out different initiatives. We make sure we're tracking the progress of those and measuring the impact as well. Throughout the whole innovation model, we're making sure that we're bringing our partners, our MTA staff, our riders, and other partners along throughout the process. And I also want to note throughout this process too, we have some key mindsets that we help guide us in the work. We're making sure that we're being impact driven, that we're being creative, that we're being people centered, constantly iterating, and also being very collaborative. So now that I've mentioned the approach in our work, I want to share the methods, the 3 key methods that we're using. We're looking at quantitative data. A lot of this exists, in the agency, and we also have a lot of support from our performance management team looking at the different data sets. We also look at inspirational data. Another way to think about this are our peer cities, whether they be our neighbors at WMATA, looking, nationally or internationally as well, and also looking at different industries and how they approach improving customer service and experience. And lastly, our special, sauce, if you want to say, is our qualitative data or our human-centered design approach. I'm sure most people are familiar with the quantitative data and kind of that peer cities or inspirational data. So next I want to dive into, dive deeper and share what human-centered design is. But human-centered design is a process that's really dedicated to understanding the people's needs, in our case, our riders, and making sure that we're designing interventions that serve those needs. This is a cheeky visual to kind of just share that when we don't use, human-centered design, or we're not being people-focused, potential outcomes that can happen. So what you see here is there's a baby and mom and grandmother looking at the cute baby mobile. It's adorable, right? It's really cute, and they love it. But when you look at the perspective from the baby has a very different perspective, maybe not as attractive as what mom and grandmother are seeing. So again, when we think about our riders, we want to make sure we're putting ourselves in their shoes and understanding their needs so that we develop interventions and outcomes that are, beneficial. And again, I want to emphasize that we're designing with our end users and not for them. So again, that really means bringing them into the fold, bringing them into that innovation model process that I discussed. We're going out, we're meeting riders where they're at. In the future, we'll be also planning doing workshops so that we can create ideas with them, bringing them into feedback sessions as we start to prototype things and get feedback from them and input on whether or not those prototypes look like things that would really help them. So now that I've talked a little bit about, human-centered design in terms of I want to talk about the key elements actually right now. So keep diving into human-centered design. It's very collaborative. It's always making sure that we're keeping our riders at the center of the work. We're always making sure that we're gathering information and making sense of it. And this is something that's just constantly, as we gather more and more data, our team's out there and processing that and going back out and gathering more information. And lastly, it's looking at a process that's very iterative and action-oriented. So looking at areas of improvement for our riders and evolving outcomes as well. So I mentioned, the key elements of human-centered design. Another way to think about the way that we're working too is this visual at the start of that innovation process. Right now, we're doing that research. Again, we're going out weekly and talking to riders. We are, reaching out to community partners to do group interviews, group conversations. There's a lot of data that's coming at us. So at the beginning, it might, be kind of noisy, uncertain. It's hard to get an understanding of that. But as we continue getting more data, we'll start to see that there are patterns and themes that begin to emerge. And then from there, we can develop some insights from that and then move into prototyping, and things become much more clear at that phase, using those themes and insights to move into the design phase where we're very clear about the type of pilots that we want to try out and see how those work. So I've talked about what human-centered design is. Now I really want to emphasize why we use human-centered design. It really positions our riders as the experts due to their lived experiences. They ride our service every day, and we really need to tap into their expertise. We make sure that we are keeping our riders at the center of the work and as we're designing in our process. It also allows for a lot of opportunity to find new ways of doing and making things. And another piece is that it's something that's going to be, more personal, meaningful, and impactful in the outcomes that we create. So now that I've talked about why and the importance, I also want to emphasize, how we apply these elements of human-centered design. Often, when we go out, we started to refine the way that we approach our riders, the type of questions that we ask. Sometimes we may have only 5 minutes with a rider as they're waiting for a bus, or sometimes we have 30 minutes when someone really wants to share a lot of their story. So we're asking a lot of why questions. We're making sure that we are combining the data that we are receiving, whether it's from our performance management team or the data that we're gathering, with the stories of our riders, so that we can humanize, their experiences and understand and elevate that data and combine that together. We're making sure that we're also doing observations, because sometimes people, do things and might not tell us things, so we may learn from observing. And this is also important to encourage all perspectives and ideas as we get into that co-creation phase. And we're making sure that we're prototyping with our riders who are our users, and that we're embracing the constant evolution of iteration and continuous gradual improvements. We want to make sure that these improvements are things that are going to be sustainable in the long term. So now that I've talked a lot about human-centered design, what it is, what are the key elements, its importance, and how that shows up in our work, also really want to emphasize that our team is looking at our work through an equity lens. We're using this design framework developed by Creative Reaction Lab. It's an equity-focused model for problem framing. And again, it really focuses on designing with our riders and not just for them, and making sure we understand the history of Baltimore and the region, potential harms in that history, and understanding power dynamics to really gather and understand the equity gaps that are out there and the challenges for our underserved riders. So as I wrap up, I've talked a lot about our team, our special kind of sauce of human-centered design and the way we approach our work. Something that's really important to us is making sure that we are collaborating not only with our MTA staff, but with our riders, our community partners. So I kind of want to leave like a call to action or support and say, please reach out to us, reach out to me. We'd love to talk to you if you're a rider, if you represent a group of riders, so that we can hear the challenges that your riders have. We can learn the things that we are doing well, so we continue doing those well, and work on, co-creating solutions. This is a short list of some groups that we've either reached out to or we plan on reaching out to soon. So again, we really look forward to working with you. And in conclusion, again, this is the first of, what I see as many conversations. I look forward to getting to know you all better, collaborating and coming back and sharing more information down the road once we've gathered more data.
Thank you, Roxana. We'd like to open the floor to questions, comments, feedback for Roxana at this time. Anna?
Hi, thank you for that presentation. Rider experience is an important thing. I guess I had a couple of questions. One is the dashboard only available through the website? I mean, it's not available on the Charm Pass app or the Transit app?
Correct. If you go to our main website, you'll see the tab that says About, and you can click that and get to the dashboard.
Okay. Is there a place to leave comments there? Because I've had very little luck using the MTA comment line.
I don't believe there's an area on that page to leave comments, but there is our 5,000 number that goes to our customer relations office. If you have questions, we can also, they take all the feedback and input from folks and direct it to the appropriate office. But I'm also happy to take, like I said, I can share my email with Robin so that she can share with the presentation. and you all can also reach out to me and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. That was my third question, was how do we reach out to you? So, okay, if we'll get that information from Robin. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna. Pleasure to meet you.
I'm just looking to see chat or questions raised. What I would like to say, Roxana, is how excited we are at Transit Choices for the launch of this new office. It's really, really important. And, one of the things that we've always believed is how, both transparency and communication really go a very long way in building trust with transit riders. So, this is a new opportunity, I think, for the MTA in terms of creating, this new office, if you will. We think that you're doing a great job. We know that you have an enormous task ahead of you. But, in the spirit of collaboration, we'd love to have you come back to provide updates or share additional information, or any way that, that we can support your efforts in terms of getting the word out and having people really understand and participate in this new data dashboard. We're happy to do.
Thank you so much, Robin. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, we'd love to connect with folks. If you're a frequent rider, if you represent a group, again, we're in that first phase of that innovation process where we're doing a lot of discovery, exploring. Weekly our team goes out, including myself, to talk to riders, meeting them where they're at so we can start learning and gathering that data, so that over time in the next couple of months we can start to see some themes and patterns that emerge from their feedback and comments about the challenges and barriers they have, the things that they like that they want us to continue doing well, and things that they might want to see in the future. And we're also looking to add folks to our contact list so that in the future, when we're ready to start doing workshops, small group workshops or feedback sessions, we can reach out to those folks as well.
We have a question in the chat from Liz. By any chance, have you reached out to any organizations working with older adults? MDOA, AAA, or community organizations? And Liz is happy to connect you if you have not.
Yeah, great question, Liz. Thank you. We have connected with some MTA advisory folks. We have also connected with the Healthy Aging Network that was started during COVID, and we plan to share a presentation with them as well. But again, we're open. We want to talk to as many folks as we can, so would love to connect with you and also be able to touch base with your groups as well.
Before Jimmy provides the closing remarks, I'd like to remind everyone that Transit Choices, in partnership with Bike More in Action and the Central Maryland Transportation Alliance, is hosting a mayoral transportation forum this evening at the Real News Network in downtown Baltimore. We are at capacity, so our registration has been closed, but it's going to be a really wonderful conversation with mayoral candidates Sheila Dixon, Brandon Scott, Tharu Vignaraja, and Bob Wallace on specific topics relative to transportation. And we want to hear from them directly about what their transportation policies and platforms are. So I will make sure to send to everybody the forum, which is from 6 to 8 p.m. tonight, will be live streamed. We've also put together a candidate booklet. We ask them to please respond to our transportation question. We will make that available as well. So we're excited to really, continue to move the transportation conversation forward with these 4 candidates. So please stay tuned. Jimmy, would you like to provide closing remarks, please?
Sure. Well, first, I want to thank the presenters, Holly and Roxana, for excellent presentations. And it's so important to the future of public transit to have the public believing in the system. If we're going to attract choice riders, we have to be communicating with people, just what Roxana's proposing to do, and seeing what the problems are and solving those problems. It's something we've been advocating for years. And this is great, Roxana, what you're proposing. And we can't wait to see data updates and to see that it's working. I think it's going to be really important. And as I said, Holly's presentation is just overwhelmingly great. And we're so impressed by the MTA and those people working there, not just Holly, but the whole staff. Everybody we interact with has been very impressive to us in their values and their dedication and their willingness to work hard. And then I want to thank all you who are listening and tuned in, because it's you that make these presentations possible. By having a broad audience that shows that it cares about transit, that's key to continuing to have interesting presentations. Holly called us and wanted to make this presentation. We didn't have to go out and ask her. So we've become a reliable channel that people in administrative positions want to actually come on and make presentations at these Transit Choices meetings. And you all are the ones that are responsible for that, because it's your participation that has created this communication network between administrators, decision makers, and the public. So thank you all.
Thank you, Jimmy. Well said. Details regarding the next Transit Choices meeting will be announced soon. So until then, thank you. Wonderful to see you all. We appreciate your participation as always, and we wish you a wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you.